Well, thanks for sitting down for a couple of minutes. I had a chance to read through your book, Hit Refresh. You talk about culture a lot, especially through the first half of the book, and that it was your highest priority when you assumed the role of CEO at Microsoft. You talked about warring gangs, each pointing a gun at another. Microsoft was too rigid. You had to prove that you were the smartest guy in the room at Microsoft. So how have you tried to change the company in the 3.5 years that you've been a CEO?
First thing I should start with is I'm a consummate insider. I've grown up at Microsoft. I'm very proud of everything that this company has done, its culture and its innovation. And as an insider, I felt that there were two things that we needed to go back and rediscover. Both that sense of purpose that in the first place made us successful, as well as what's the culture. In fact, if anything, I was mostly invoking a caricature that the external world had about us, that we needed to disprove, starting for ourselves. And that's sort of really where culture matters. So the two things that I prioritized was that asking that existential question, why does Microsoft exist? What is it that we can do uniquely that is tremendously innovative and useful for our customers? And answering that. And then what's the culture that will allow us to do our best work? Not just one person, but us collectively. And those have been, I think, massive areas of focus for me.
I know there's one page in here that drew a laugh from me. On page 119, you talked about what you said to other managers. And I'm quoting now, your words. To be a leader in this company, your job is to find the rose petals in a field of shit. What is that all about?
Well, I mean, I think that comes from, we have the top 150 or so people at Microsoft who are called corporate vice presidents. And to me, if you are ever going to become a corporate vice president or you're part of that community now, being a leader and complaining about constraints is just not acceptable. That's not what leaders do. And so that was not definitely my finest line of poetry, but the idea that, look, leaders are ones who absolutely can stand up to any challenge, find the answer, create the energy, bring clarity when none exists. That's what I wanted to invoke. I could have done with better poetry.
Well, you talk a lot, and it's kind of fascinating. In a book written by the CEO of a major American company, you talk a lot about your personal life. And your son Zane, who has cerebral palsy. You talk about your 5-month-old sister who passed away as well. Those personal challenges that you've had through life, how have they formed you as the CEO?
Yeah, in fact, as I started writing the book, obviously I wanted to write the second, third stanza of Hit Refresh, which is what are we as a company going through in terms of this continuous process of transformation and change, and then what are we as a society needing to do with new technologies and new economic realities. But it was going to be impossible for me to reflect on those two without reflecting on my own life and talking about these moments that are hit refresh moments that have shaped me. Whether it was that first interview question or the last interview question of my interview at Microsoft, with the birth of my son, the death of my sister. These were all things ultimately that shaped, I think, and I understand it more so now in retrospect, who I am and how I think. And the fundamental thing that, that I feel that the life's experience teaches anyone is the ability to develop a keener sense of empathy for an increasing set of people around you and the community around you. And to me, quite frankly, that's super important to bring to bear in innovation, because after all, what are we trying to do as a company? As a company, we are trying to meet the unmet, unarticulated needs of customers. And the lessons you learn in your life, the empathy you develop can in fact help you innovate so that you can build products that people love.
Yeah, you talked about Zane in particular. It really helped you change your focus on what's important and the empathetic side?
Absolutely. I mean, Zane's, I was 29 years old. I was far from being a CEO. I mean, I was a 29-year-old entry-level engineer at Microsoft, and when Zane was born, the challenge hit me, in fact, very, very hard, because a lot of what I had planned was out of the window because of the challenges Zane was faced with. And for a few years, it was all about, I was more thinking, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to us? It was only by watching my wife, Anu, and how she responded, really helping give Zane the best chance, building, in fact, an amazing community of people in Seattle area who are all working to give Zane a chance, which is when I realized that nothing happened to me, something happened to Zane, and it was my responsibility to step up in seeing through his eyes what I should do. That, I think, is one of the things that now definitely I see as my core responsibility as a leader as well.
You also talk in the book and give a lot of credit to Amazon, to Google, to Apple, and what they've done over time. You talked about the future of the company with the cloud and how in June of 2008, you basically started it at the bottom with Amazon already had a huge start on you, and the focus with the cloud. How important is the cloud and services related to the cloud right now for the future of Amazon, or for the future of Microsoft?
I mean, it's a very big, successful business for us already, and we continue to grow that, innovate, and as you rightfully pointed out, this is one of the places where Steve, in fact, got us going on the cloud, and it has been one of those things, which is, we are here 43 years after our inception, continuing to innovate and compete with people who are new. Today we compete with a whole set of new players who are very different than even the players we competed with 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And to me, that I think is a real testament to our ability to be able to catch new waves, put risk, and then make innovation happen. And some will hit, some will miss. But the idea that we continue to push ourselves is, I think, what matters. And in the cloud, we clearly are one of the leaders, and we continue to grow that business very, very well.
You talked about the importance of Bing, the importance of LinkedIn, which I think a lot of people looked at when Microsoft made that purchase and said, what is Microsoft thinking? But you said that all ties in to cloud services, no?
Absolutely. In fact, if you think about Bing, some of the infrastructure of what is considered Azure and our cloud infrastructure came from there. So the ability to learn in one place, use it in other places, have technology that spans these areas is, I think, very important. Bing by itself is a multi-billion-dollar business that's very healthily growing for us. LinkedIn, again, similarly for us, we already have the world's professional cloud with Microsoft 365 and Office 365. We have 1 billion users of Windows and Office who are professionals. LinkedIn is the world's professional network. All the things that we can do to bring those things together. Dynamics 365 and LinkedIn can completely change how sales and marketing happen, and training and talent management happen. So we're very, very excited, and in fact, we're well on our way. LinkedIn by itself is continuing to grow, but on top of that, it's helping differentiate and accelerate these other product areas of ours.
So where do you see Microsoft in 5 or 10 years? Is it a cloud company? Is it a VR company? Where do you think this company is going? Where do you want to take it?
Yeah, so to me, we go back to our mission. Our mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Every word there is key to us. We will always innovate for people and institutions and organizations people build. We'll do that worldwide. I'm a product of that. We will then ultimately, though, it's not about our technology or the coolness of our technology. It's ultimately people's ability to create their own achievements using our technology. That's ingrained in our business model. With AI, with mixed reality, with quantum computing, these are some of the technology waves I talk about. We will really bring forth those technologies to bear with this sense of purpose. That's kind of really what's most important to us. It's not just about, oh, we're going to do AI, or we're going to do mixed reality. What are we going to do with these technologies? How are we going to empower people and organizations all over the planet so that they can go on to achieve more, is what I think uniquely only Microsoft can do.
I have just 2 more questions for you, and one is something that you've covered in the book, in the early pages of the book, about immigration. And you talked quite a bit about how you have empathy for any person targeted with violence and hate because of the color of his or her skin, what they believe, and who they love. But you also talked about your personal story and in the United States, the 1965 Immigration and Naturalization Act, and movements like that enabled you to come to the United States and be part of the tech boom. So there's obviously a lot of talk about immigration in the United States and travel bans. How would a ban, if one is ever approved through the courts, how would it affect Microsoft? And what do you think about all this discussion, given the history that brought you to this country?
I mean, I go all the way back and say I'm a product of two amazing American things. One is American technology reaching me where I was growing up, giving me the opportunity to dream. And then Americans' immigration policy, the enlightened immigration policy that allowed me to live the dream. And so I will always advocate that we not lose sight of what gives us that ability to be more competitive as a country and as an economy. Because immigration for us is a source of competitive strength. Everybody wants to come here and contribute. Even the humanity of our immigration policy is not something to be underestimated, because we are that beacon of hope for everyone who needs it the most. And the more we really keep that in mind, while securing our borders, while making sure that our people who are here already have the opportunities to have real economic return, that's all, I think, very important. But let us not take one away while trying to solve the other. That's how at least I think of immigration.
And last question for you. A lot of people could probably say that Microsoft was an important part of the growth of the Seattle area, the east side. There has been tremendous growth, especially in Redmond, Kirkland, Bellevue, thanks to what Microsoft did decades ago. Seattle is now going through the same kind of growth with Amazon. What kind of responsibility do you think, based on the history of Microsoft, should a company have to easing the mitigation with growth and growth management?
I think it's a lot. In some sense, clearly we have to work to be a great citizen and a contributor to the community. If I look at Microsoft, whether it's the employee giving campaign and what the employees do with all of the organizations, or what we are doing with a program like TEALS, which is the computer science education volunteering that we sponsor, which is now in 80+ schools, or the opportunity scholarship that we've contributed to, or all of the things that we get involved in, or even what we're doing with University of Washington to build this new institution called GIX with Tsinghua. I think making sure that the community around you is a vibrant community, that you're creating surplus in that community because of you operating out of that community is super important. And quite frankly, I want us as a multinational company to do that in every market, in every community all over the world. Because I think that's the true measure, because any corporation is going to be truly measured by not just what have they done for their own shareholders, but what have they done in terms of contributing to the local economies and the local communities. And for us, being a company that is headquartered in this region, the prosperity and the opportunity that we create in this region is super important.